Lisa,
Yes, baby girl.
when I grow up, I want to be a womanist to society.
Then so shall you be. Hey y'all, this is Lisa Landry. Welcome back to Menace to Society. I am beyond stoked about this week's guest. She's one of my favorite people in the world, and she's also running for the state house in Oklahoma. Please welcome back to the podcast, Summer Wesley.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for having me again.
I'm always excited when you come back, and I'm excited that you are running for state legislature. I'm actually a volunteer on your campaign. Full disclosure, transparency, full disclosure.
Absolutely. And I appreciate all the work you're doing for me.
Well, I want to do more work. It is overwhelming trying to get somebody elected. What is making you run, Summer? What's driving this?
Well, we are at the top of every list that no state wants to be on, right? Our schools are failing. We've got a staggering number of people without access to health care. Our incarceration rates are alarming. Our infrastructure, I don't know, anybody who's driven down our roads knows our infrastructure is quite literally crumbling. And unfortunately, not much is being done to improve that. I know there are efforts, but it's been an uphill battle, and I would like to lend my skills. I am law trained after all, so I do understand policy and also how it affects people's everyday lives. And so I think it's time to step up and try to do my part to help move Oklahoma forward.
Yeah, there's a lot of love that you probably have for this state and a lot of disappointment, I would reckon. As you look around, there's all this opportunity to make things better, yet so much is fallen by the wayside.
Absolutely. I mean, I've lived in Oklahoma my whole life. I'm the, fifth generation to be born here since removal. I really don't know anything but Oklahoma, really. And we miss so many opportunities to improve the lives of people. And of course, as most people who know me know, I spent years in social work. It's what my day job is right now. And I spend so much time with the most vulnerable members of our community, and so little is being done, and their resources are dwindling by the day because of, unfortunately, our legislative priorities. We've got to make some changes.
You are a fighter for the underdog. I have known you for years now, and you are steadfast in protecting people that are marginalized. And that includes a lot of people here in Oklahoma.
And I feel like that number is increasing constantly. We're moving backwards, unfortunately, in a lot of ways.
And it's not just the traditional populations that are feeling these effects. A couple of weeks ago with Marty Piercy, and he's an investigative journalist in OKC, and he told me that there's a huge population of white men who are homeless here, and they're not even military veterans.
The number, of our homeless population is way higher than most people realize. They just did the annual count. I don't think those numbers are quite out yet to see what the change has been since last year. But yeah, I mean, income disparity is getting worse. Jobs. When we talk about unemployment rates, right, being down, we don't talk about the fact that they are artificially lower because people are working multiple jobs, which makes the unemployment rate look like it's down, which really a reflection of how much people are struggling. There used to be a much bigger gap, right, where between those in poverty and those who aren't. And we talk about the disappearing of the middle class, but that's really what's happening. Income rates are not increasing. They haven't increased here in years, but the standard of living is going up. So we have a significant number of even employed people who are not being able to make ends meet. You should be able to support yourself on the wages of a full-time job, but you can't. There is not a state in the country where you can afford rent at the percentage of your income that economists recommend. It just doesn't exist. And we've got to start looking at realistic changes to improve people's lives.
That's why I really wholeheartedly support your campaign. I know that you want to make a difference, and at a very personal level. Like, if you can't even afford to put a roof over your head and feed your kids, what are the other issues matter to you?
Right, absolutely. If you're living in survival mode every day, there's so much that's just absolutely out of your reach. You can't be focused on other things because you're just trying to literally survive day to day. And like you said, keep your family together even. Hard to keep a family together if you're homeless or if you're in poverty. And so there's these ripple effects. There are so many people who are just one unexpected disaster, whether it's, a medical emergency or a sudden unexpected job loss, from absolute devastation. And they may not even realize how close they are. But economically speaking, the numbers don't lie. So many of us are that close to an economic disaster and to facing that possibility of being homeless or not being able to feed ourselves.
It's very traumatizing, especially kids can't go to school and learn if they don't have proper nourishment and they don't have a place to live, or they're living where they're being abused.
True, absolutely.
It's all feeding into other situations. What is your congressional district?
It's House District 100. There's a map available online, but for those familiar with the Oklahoma City metro area, it's a portion of northern Bethany, most of War Acres, and northwest Oklahoma City up to 122nd Rockwell to County Line Road. It is part of Oklahoma City. Now, Bethany and War Acres are two small municipalities that are now surrounded by Oklahoma City, yet for whatever reason do not want to annex, and so they remain their own municipalities surrounded by the metro, and then the larger portion is part of Oklahoma City.
And you would be advocating for that entire population altogether.
Right, that in that geographic area. But also, my constituents would come from that district. But it's also important for people to realize that state representatives don't just vote. The laws that we write don't apply just to their district, right? What I would be doing would affect all of Oklahoma, which is why it's important for people to pay attention to these races and to support candidates and to put in work or donate to campaigns, even if it's not in your district, because the laws they write are still going to affect you.
And you're coming to this with a background in law. You have a JD, a Juris Doctorate. You concentrate on social work currently, which is why you're not practicing. You haven't been disbarred. You didn't walk away from the profession or anything like that. You have actually made a choice to speak up for the voiceless in social work, which is very necessary here because there is a statewide problem with PTSD and opioid use disorder.
Right.
So, yeah, in Oklahoma, that's one of the reasons I came here, to work with those populations. You are coming from such a wealth of information, and you know how to apply it at a personal level.
Right. As you said, I do have the JD. I did prefer tribal law. I never practiced fully in state courts because I do not enjoy state courts. I did courtroom work as a licensed legal intern and decided I did not enjoy state court. So I managed to stay in arrangements where I would do most of the client relations, but have another attorney do the courtroom practice because I do prefer tribal courts. Because honestly, I see in both state court and in the tribal courts that are designed after state courts, because some nations have chosen to structure their courts and their codes according to their own culture, and that is my preference, is practicing within that. The others that are formulated more like state court, we have some very significant reforms that need to be made in the American legal system, and I practice primarily in the areas of family law, and it became such a heavy burden to see the system weaponized to abuse people. And that is what was happening in so many family court cases. And I just didn't want to be a part of that anymore. Mm-hmm. I felt like I could make much bigger difference in people's lives by going back to social work. So yes, I made a conscious decision at the end of 2018 to not renew any bar membership that I had, so that I could not impulsively take a case. and yes, went back to focusing on social work, because I feel like how we treat the most vulnerable among us, whether it's the incarcerated or, you mentioned people struggling with opioid addiction, or, whichever population we want to identify at this point, how we treat the most vulnerable is a reflection of who we are. And as long as we are treating people as if they're disposable, we still aren't doing it right. And we have got to fix those things and address those things. Because no matter what we have, what privileges, what wealth, or what have you that we have as an individual, we are still a failure if we are not doing everything we can for those vulnerable populations.
Speaking of vulnerable populations, I know that you are a mom of five precious ones, and not all of them are humans that you gave birth to yourself.
Correct. Two of my children were adopted. They both spent time in foster care, so I do have experience as a foster parent as well as an adoptive parent. And I also volunteer right now on the Indian Child Welfare Post-Adjudication Review Board, which is where we review cases in Oklahoma County, deprived cases, to make sure they're complying with policy and procedure, otherwise known as the law. And sorry, I got technical there for a second, because it means that much to me. We have a responsibility. Everyone has a responsibility to the children, right? We can't just pretend like awful things aren't happening, whether it's neglect or abuse by their caregivers or by the system. Wherever those wrongs are, we've got to do everything we can to address those.
I'm encouraged by you running. I'm encouraged by a lot of the campaigns that I'm seeing where people, it seems like, are starting to put more focus on children.
It seems that way, and it makes me hopeful. I do tend to get discouraged because I see things, because I see so much bad every day, right? But I do see a lot more focus on that, whether it's in policy, or I'm seeing a lot more focus on, like, well, for instance, we've talked on previous episodes about the Indigenous charter school that was started.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the focus in there to have the teachers trained on trauma-informed care and responses. And so I see the consciousness overall, collectively speaking, shifting to really starting to understand that we need to be focused on that, and preventing or responding to trauma at those developmental stages makes a lifelong difference. Not only for them, but for everybody that they're ever going to have relationships with. Everybody that's our friends, our families, our neighbors, all of those relationships are affected by our well-being, as well as our own happiness in our own life. And if we can help improve that for children, it doesn't just improve their lives, but it improves the entire community and the society as a whole. And so I am a bit hopeful in seeing that people are starting to focus on that. I wish it happens faster and sooner, but, hopefully we will get there. I'm also seeing a lot of younger people stepping up to take these roles. I mean, I've met with a lot of the sitting representatives. A significant number of them are younger than me. They're young people. When I went to the Women's March recently, I met two new candidates, both for the House. And I didn't ask how old they are. I assume they're in their 20s. They're definitely younger than me. So to me, they're a kid, right? So I'm seeing a lot more young people actively taking interest and being willing to step up and say, okay, I'm going to invest myself into trying to make a difference. That makes me hopeful too. I certainly was not doing that when I was younger. So I'm glad. I feel like maybe it's a sign of a shift, and that maybe that momentum of making these positive changes will grow. And maybe it will take fewer generations to figure out some of these atrocious things that we do and to stop them. Because, as a species, humans are pretty terrible.
Yeah, we're doing some really, well, not we are doing some stuff. I don't have the power to actually make life decisions for others. So, yeah, there are other people making these horrific mistakes, in my opinion, that have the power to stop what they're doing, and they're choosing not to, and the rest of us are dealing with their disordered thoughts.
Absolutely.
And actions. If somebody's listening and they're in Oklahoma and they're in your district, what should they know about you? What should they take away? Summer Wesley.
I think first and foremost, I want people to understand that I am here to listen and understand what your concerns are, and to try to help formulate solutions to those. Obviously, because of the way the democratic system works, I can't make guarantees that, we're going to get X, Y, Z to solve those problems, but we can certainly work together to try to find solutions and try to accomplish those goals. So I don't want anyone to ever hesitate about coming to me. I am very accessible. I answer messages from strangers. Like Lisa, that's how she found me. Was online. Sent me a random message. So I do that. I have experience doing that, and I don't mind doing it. I think that's what a representative should do. That's one thing I have found to be extremely frustrating in the community work that I've done over the years, is when I would speak to legislators, I would find that either were inaccessible, I couldn't talk to them, they wouldn't return calls, or they just absolutely did not understand how their policies affected people's everyday lives. I do understand, and I will listen. So those two things should not be a concern with me.
You are a very good listener, and you're a very good proactive thinker, in my opinion.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, Summer Wesley, I wish you the very best of luck. Like I said, I'm involved in your campaign. I think you would do a remarkable job for Oklahoma City and the people of Oklahoma. And there are a lot of great people here who could use that help. How can people get involved if they want to contribute to your campaign, Summer?
My website is Summer for HD100. That's SUMMER, spelled like the season, FOR HD, and 100 is the numbers, 100.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Summer for HD100. Reach out if you want to volunteer, if you want to donate. The links are all there. If you have questions, you can reach out to me, and I will gladly answer them.
All right, y'all, go ahead and hit Summer up. Ask your questions, connect with her, volunteer, get involved, donate, do what you can, because this lady is a gem, and I think she's great for Oklahoma. Thank you so much, Summer Wesley.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Summer Wesley, and thanks for listening, y'all. If you want to support Summer, which I think is a great idea because she is a fantastic candidate and would do a huge amount of awesome work for the people of Oklahoma, please do find her online, make a donation. If you're in OKC, if you want to volunteer for her campaign, look her up. And also please find me at lisalandry.com. Support my work by joining me on my YouTube channel. You'll know when each new podcast drops every week. Shout out Ari Bear. I love you, honey. I miss your face.